AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to prove my loyalty by giving up my inheritance. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, especially my younger sister Maya, 29F. Growing up, I was the quiet, responsible one who did well in school and stayed out of trouble. Maya was the golden child. She was loud, charming, and constantly praised for being free-spirited, even when her choices caused chaos. My parents never said they favored her, but it was obvious. If Maya broke something, it was an accident. If I did, it was a lesson about being more careful. Despite this, I try to be a good sister. I helped her with homework, lent her money when she moved out too early, and even let her crash on my couch for 6 months when she quit a job without a backup plan. She rarely said thank you, but I told myself family helps family. 5 years ago, our grandmother passed away. She and I were very close. I visited her every week, helped manage her medications, and handled paperwork when her memory started to slip. Maya visited on holidays, but was mostly absent. In her will, my grandmother left me her house and a modest savings account. Maya received some jewelry and a smaller cash amount. This caused a huge blow-up. Maya accused me of manipulating our grandmother and stealing what should have been split evenly. My parents tried to stay neutral, but asked me to be the bigger person and share. I didn't. I moved into the house, fixed it up, and eventually rented it out. That rental income is now a big part of my financial stability. Fast forward to last year. Maya got engaged. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. She asked me to be her maid of honor, saying she wanted to start fresh and put the past behind us. I agreed, cautiously optimistic. For a while, things were okay. I helped plan the bachelorette party, went dress shopping, and even covered some costs when she complained about her budget. Then, about 3 months ago, she invited me to dinner alone. I thought it was just sister time. Instead, she launched into a long speech about how weddings are about family unity and how she still felt hurt about our grandmother's will. She said that seeing me benefit from her share made it hard for her to fully trust me as her sister. I told her again that I didn't influence the will and that I had cared for Grandma when no one else did. She said that didn't matter. Then she dropped the bomb. She said that if I truly cared about her happiness and wanted to stand beside her at the wedding, I would sign over the house to her, or at least agree to sell it and split the proceeds. She framed it as a symbolic gesture to prove I valued her over money. She said if I didn't, it would be hard for her to have me there on the most important day of her life, without resentment. I was stunned. I told her no, absolutely not. The house wasn't just money to me. It represented my grandmother's trust and years of emotional labor I gave without expecting anything back. I also pointed out that I had already spent thousands supporting Maya over the years, far more than the value of the jewelry she received. She accused me of keeping score and stormed out. A week later, I got a call from my mother. She said Maya was devastated and crying daily. My mom said she understood my feelings, but asked if I could compromise to keep the peace. My dad suggested I could at least put some money aside for Maya after the wedding, so she could feel secure. No one asked how I was doing. No one acknowledged how hurt I felt being given an ultimatum. Then came a final straw. Maya sent me a long message saying that since I refused to do the right thing, she was removing me as maid of honor. She said I could still attend as a guest if I reflected on my priorities and didn't bring up the inheritance to anyone. Something in me just snapped. I replied that I wouldn't attend at all. I wished her a happy marriage, but said I was done being pressured and guilt in sacrificing my boundaries for her comfort. Since then, my phone has been blowing up. Extended family members say I'm cruel for skipping my own sister's wedding. Some say I'm punishing her for expressing her feelings. Others say weddings aren't the time for family drama, and I should just show up and smile. A few people privately told me they understand, but no one is willing to say it publicly. Now the wedding is a month away, and I'm sitting here feeling equal parts angry, sad, and guilty. I never wanted things to get this bad. At the same time, the idea of standing there pretending everything is fine while my sister sees my presence as conditional on giving up something deeply meaningful to me makes my stomach turn. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she demanded I give up my inheritance to prove my loyalty. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister turn our late grandmother's house into her wedding venue and kicking her out when she ignored me. I, 32F, inherited my grandmother's house last year. Before anyone asks, this wasn't a surprise decision made on a whim. I was the one who moved in with her during the last 3 years of her life, cut my work hours, managed her medications, took her to appointments, and basically became her full-time caregiver. My sister, Lena, 29F, lives in another city and visited maybe 3 times a year, usually for holidays, and always left early. My grandmother was very clear in her will that the house was left to me because she wanted it to stay with someone who loved it and would live in it, not sell it. There was some jewelry and money that was split evenly between the grandchildren, including Lena, so it wasn't like she got nothing. The house itself is old, but beautiful. Think creaky floors, a huge backyard, an old oak tree, and a wraparound porch. It needs work, but I've been slowly fixing it up while actually living here. When Lena got engaged about 6 months ago, she immediately fell in love with the idea of a vintage garden wedding. I congratulated her and didn't think much of it. Then she asked if she could use the house as her wedding venue. At first, I tried to be open-minded. I told her I was hesitant because this is my home, not just a pretty backdrop, and because large events could damage the property. She said it would be small and tasteful, and that it would mean so much to her to get married in Grandma's house. I said I'd think about it. A week later, she sent me a Pinterest board, a guest list of about 120 people, and a rough plan that included renting tents, portable bathrooms, and having a caterer use my kitchen. She had already told people the wedding would be at the family house. I told her no. I explained that I wasn't comfortable with that many people in my home, that the house wasn't equipped for events, and that I didn't want the stress. I offered compromises. She could take engagement photos here, or we could host a small family dinner another time. She accused me of being selfish and holding Grandma hostage. She said Grandma would have loved it, and that if the house was still in the family, I should share it. After that conversation, things got tense but quiet. Or so I thought. 3 weeks ago, I came home from work early and found strangers in my backyard. There were 2 women measuring the lawn and a guy taking photos of the porch. When I asked who they were, they said they were the wedding planner and rental coordinator and that Lena had given them permission to do a site walkthrough. I was furious. I called Lena immediately, and she said she thought I would come around and that it was easier to ask forgiveness than permission. She said I was being dramatic and that it was just a walkthrough. I told her to leave and never send anyone to my house again without my consent. She cried, called me heartless, and hung up. Here's where it escalated. Lena had been staying in my guest room temporarily to save money for the wedding. We didn't have a formal agreement, but she wasn't paying rent, just helping with groceries occasionally. After the walkthrough incident, I told her she had 30 days to find another place. I said I needed space and couldn't trust her to respect my boundaries. She lost it. She said I was punishing her, that I was abusing my power, and that Grandma would be ashamed of me. She called our parents, who then called me to say I was tearing the family apart over one day. My mom said I could just stay with a friend that weekend. My dad said property can be fixed, but relationships can't. I stood my ground. Lena moved out angrily after 2 weeks, and has since told everyone in the family that I stole the house and am now throwing her out and ruining her wedding. I've gotten texts from aunts and cousins saying I should reconsider and that I'm being cold. One cousin said that since the house was inherited, it's morally still shared, even if legally it's mine. I feel awful because I do love my sister, and I know weddings are emotional. But I also feel like my home and my grief are being treated like props. This house is where I cared for Grandma, while Lena lived her life elsewhere. It's where I finally feel stable and safe after a really hard few years. Now the wedding is 3 months away. Lena still doesn't have a venue, and my parents say this could permanently damage our relationship if I don't give in. So AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house as her wedding venue and asking her to move out after she ignored my boundaries. AITA for uninviting my sister from my wedding after she insisted on bringing her kids despite our clear no kids rule. AITA for uninviting my sister from my wedding after she insisted on bringing her kids despite our clear no kids rule. I, 29F, am getting married to my fiancé Mark, 31M, in 2 months. We've been together for 6 years, engaged for 1, and planning this wedding has honestly been one of the most stressful things I've ever done. We're paying for most of it ourselves, with some help from Mark's parents, and we're keeping it relatively small, about 75 guests, outdoor venue, evening ceremony, open bar, live band. Nothing extravagant, but definitely not a backyard barbecue either. From the very beginning, we decided on a child-free wedding. This wasn't a last-minute decision or something we hid in fine print. We discussed it together and agreed that we wanted an adult-only evening where people could relax, drink, and not worry about supervising kids near a lake and dance floor. We put adults-only celebration on the invitations, mentioned it on our wedding website FAQ, and personally told close family members well in advance. This includes my older sister Laura, 34F, who has 2 kids, Ethan, 7, and Lily, 4. I love my niece and nephew, but they are a lot. Ethan has behavioral issues and tends to have loud meltdowns when he's overstimulated, and Lily is in the phase where she runs off the second you look away. Laura is very much a kids will be kids parent and doesn't believe in removing them from situations or disciplining them in public. When I told Laura about the no kids rule months ago, she laughed and said, "We'll see." I thought she was joking, so I reiterated that we were serious. She got quiet and said we'd talk about it later. Fast forward to last week. Laura called me and asked about seating arrangements. During the conversation, she casually mentioned that she'd need high chairs for the kids and asked if the venue had a kids menu. I reminded her, again, that kids were not invited. She immediately got defensive and said she assumed her kids were the exception because they're family. I told her there were no exceptions. Mark's side also has kids, including his sister's twins, and they are not coming either. Laura said it was cruel and selfish to exclude children and that I was basically telling her she couldn't attend. I suggested she get a babysitter, and she said she doesn't trust anyone with her kids overnight and that it would be financially irresponsible to pay for childcare just to attend my wedding. Things escalated quickly. She accused me of hating her kids and said I was prioritizing a party over family. I told her that this was our wedding, not a family reunion, and that the rule applied to everyone equally. She then said that if her kids weren't welcome, neither was she, but in a way that felt like she expected me to cave. Instead, I said I was sorry she felt that way, and that we'd miss her if she chose not to come. Apparently, that was the wrong answer. She called our parents immediately. Within an hour, my mom called me in tears, saying Laura was devastated and that I was tearing the family apart over something trivial. My dad said that while he understood our preference, family should come first, and suggested we make an exception just for Laura to keep the peace. I refused. I said it wouldn't be fair to Mark's family or our friends who also have kids, and made arrangements. I also pointed out that Laura had months of notice and chose to ignore it. The next day, Laura texted me a long message saying she would bring the kids anyway, and that I couldn't stop her. She said it would be humiliating to be turned away at the door, and that I wouldn't actually do that to her. That message pushed me over the edge. I replied that if she showed up with her kids, security would not let her in, and that to avoid drama, it would be better if she didn't attend at all. I told her that until she could respect our boundaries, her invitation was officially withdrawn. Now the fallout is huge. Laura has blocked me. My mom says I went too far by uninviting her and that I should have just let it go for one day. Several extended family members have messaged me saying I'm being a bridezilla and that weddings are about family, not rules. A few have even hinted they might not come if Laura isn't welcome. On the other hand, Mark fully supports me and says this is exactly why we want a no-kids wedding in the first place. Some friends have also said that Laura was trying to bully me into changing our plans, and that giving in would only reinforce that behavior. I feel awful. I don't want a lifelong rift with my sister, and I hate the idea that my wedding might permanently damage family relationships. At the same time, I feel like if I back down now, I'm telling everyone that our boundaries don't matter and that the loudest person wins. So, AITA for uninviting my sister from my wedding after she refused to respect our child-free rule. AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her kids to my wedding after she refused to babysit my nephew for a week. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Megan, 26F. We love each other, but our lives are very different, and sometimes that causes friction. I got engaged last year, and we immediately started planning the wedding. I have a small guest list because I want a fairly intimate ceremony around 70 people, mostly family and close friends. Megan has 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I've always been on the fence about whether to include them. When I first mentioned the idea of a kid-free wedding, Megan rolled her eyes but didn't argue. I assumed it would be fine, but the tension started when I asked her for help with something specific. A few months before the wedding, I found myself in a position where I had to travel out of state for work for a week. I have a 7-year-old nephew, Eli, who is Megan's eldest, and my own daughter, Lily, is 5. Since my husband and I would be gone, I asked Megan if she could watch Eli for a week. I offered compensation for groceries and anything extra, but the main idea was that Eli could spend time with his aunt and cousin, and I could focus on work without worrying. Megan immediately said no. She claimed she was too busy with her kids and work, that it was unfair for me to expect her to take on a full week of childcare, and she was insulted that I didn't consider hiring a professional sitter. I tried to reason with her, explaining I wasn't trying to dump responsibility, but genuinely needed help, but she wouldn't budge. She said it was completely unreasonable, and made it clear she felt I was trying to exploit her. After a long argument, I gave up and arranged a professional nanny for Eli. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Because Megan had refused to babysit Eli, I started feeling hesitant about including her kids. My wedding is expensive and space is limited. I realized that if she's not willing to help me when I really need her, I don't feel comfortable including her kids in what is essentially an adult-focused event. I politely told her that the wedding would be adults only, including my own daughter's care during the reception. I offered to help her find a babysitter, but the message was clear: no kids allowed. Megan lost it. She called me selfish, accused me of punishing her children for her decision, and said I was being dramatic and unfair. She argued that refusing to babysit Eli should have no bearing on whether her kids can attend my wedding. She also threatened not to come if her children weren't allowed. My parents are split on the issue. My mom says I should just let the kids come to avoid family drama. My dad says that while I should expect some blowback, it's my day and I can set the rules. I feel like I'm being punished for something that wasn't my fault. I asked for help and didn't get it, and now I have to enforce boundaries I never wanted to enforce in the first place. Since I told Megan her kids couldn't attend, several relatives have started picking sides. Some think I'm being a brat about a child-free wedding, while others think Megan is overreacting and I'm right to set boundaries. Megan hasn't spoken to me much, but she's been posting passive-aggressive things about me on social media. Like, some people put themselves above family, and it shows, which obviously seems like it's about me. I feel awful because I don't want to hurt her, and I love my niece and nephew, but I also feel like my boundaries are completely reasonable. I can't help but think that if she'd helped me with Eli, I wouldn't even be in this position. But at the same time, it's my wedding, and I should get to decide the kind of event I want. I keep wondering if I'm overreacting and punishing her kids for her decision, which is not my intention at all. AITA here for making my wedding adults only because my sister refused to help with childcare, even though she thinks it's unrelated. I don't want to start a fight with the family, but I also don't want to feel like my boundaries aren't respected. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from an important family decision. I, 28F, have always been close with my family, especially my younger sister, Emma, 26F. Growing up, We were inseparable: sleepovers, shared clothes, family vacations. But things started to change when we reached adulthood, especially after we both began serious relationships. Emma has always been a bit controlling, and I've always been the more easygoing sibling, willing to compromise and go along with her plans. Last year, Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Daniel, 29M. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. I helped her brainstorm ideas for the proposal, assisted in planning small pre-wedding events, and even gave her advice on venues and dress styles. I thought we were still close, though she seemed more distant over time. She started making decisions without consulting me, which was unusual, but I chalked it up to wedding planning stress. The breaking point came when Emma announced that she wanted a very private, intimate ceremony with only immediate family. She didn't include me in the discussion about the guest list or family roles, which I found odd because we had always involved each other in major family events. I confronted her, asking why I hadn't been included, and she told me that I wasn't necessary for the key decisions and that she wanted a stress-free planning experience without input from anyone. I was hurt, but tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting. Things escalated further when she asked my parents to attend a meeting with the wedding planner. They came back excited, telling me all the details of what Emma had decided without me. It was about seating arrangements, the music playlist, and most importantly, she had chosen a bridesmaid dress that I would have to wear. The dress was extremely expensive, far above what I could afford, and something I had no say in. When I tried to discuss alternatives, she brushed me off, saying I should just make it work for the sake of the wedding. I decided to confront her directly one evening. I told her that I felt excluded from a major part of her life and that the dress situation was unfair. She reacted angrily, saying that I was being dramatic and selfish. According to her, the wedding was her day, not mine, and she had the right to make decisions without me. She also accused me of trying to control everything, which I found ironic because she had always been the one with a controlling streak. I tried to explain that my issue wasn't about control, but about feeling unvalued and disrespected. I suggested compromises, like sharing the dress cost or helping me pick a style I could afford. She refused, saying that my feelings were less important than her vision for the wedding. At that point, I told her I might not attend the wedding if things didn't change. She laughed and said she didn't care, that she had her perfect day planned and I was welcome to come if I could follow her rules. After this conversation, I spent weeks debating what to do. I really wanted to be there for my sister, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that attending would make me feel humiliated and resentful. I reached out to my parents for advice, and they were torn. They understand why I feel hurt, but also think I should go to support my sister. My closest friends all agreed that my feelings were valid and that I shouldn't be forced to compromise my dignity. I finally made the decision not to attend the wedding. I sent Emma a message explaining that I couldn't come because I felt excluded and disrespected. I also told her I loved her and hoped we could repair our relationship afterward. Her response was extremely harsh. She accused me of being selfish, ruining family unity, and said she couldn't believe I was prioritizing a dress over her happiness. She even posted a passive-aggressive comment on social media about family members who can't celebrate others' milestones that I'm sure was directed at me. The fallout has been intense. Our parents are upset. Emma hasn't spoken to me in weeks, and extended family members are asking me to apologize. I feel caught between my desire to maintain boundaries and the expectation that I should always be there for my family no matter what. I also worry that by not attending, I'm contributing to a long-term rift with Emma that might never heal. I don't feel like I did anything wrong, but I'm starting to second-guess myself. Was I truly justified in refusing to attend her wedding over a dress and feeling left out, or should I have swallowed my pride for the sake of family harmony? I'm open to the idea that maybe I could have handled it differently, but I also don't want to feel forced into participating in something where my feelings were completely disregarded. So Reddit, AITA, character count, 6,426 if you want. I can also create an even longer, more dramatic version that hits closer to 7,000 characters with extra family tension, friends' opinions, and build up to the confrontation to make it feel more like the stories that go viral. Do you want me to do that? AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her dog to my wedding even though she's family? So, 32F, am getting married in 6 months. My fiancé, Matt, 34M, and I have been together for 7 years, and we finally decided to have a wedding this year. From the beginning, we agreed we wanted a relatively small wedding with close friends and family only. We also decided it was going to be a formal indoor ceremony at a historic venue with a reception in the same location. We both knew that this meant no pets because the venue doesn't allow animals inside, and it's not exactly practical for a formal event. Here's where the problem starts. My younger sister, Emma, 28F, has a dog named Baxter. Baxter is a rescue she adopted about 4 years ago, and she is absolutely obsessed with him. She has posted thousands of photos of him on social media, talks to him like he's a person, and sometimes even cancels plans to stay home with him. Normally, I think that's harmless, but the obsession has spilled over into every family event we've had over the past couple of years. She brings him everywhere, often ignoring basic etiquette like keeping him calm or cleaning up after him. A few months ago, when we were finalizing the guest list, I told Emma that pets wouldn't be allowed at the wedding. She looked a little disappointed, but I thought she understood. Fast forward to last week, she calls me out of the blue, very dramatic, asking, "So, I guess Baxter won't be at your wedding?" I calmly reminded her that the venue doesn't allow animals inside, and the wedding is indoors, and we already had a no pets rule. Emma immediately started crying on the phone and said, "This isn't fair. He's part of the family. You wouldn't even let me celebrate with my family complete." I tried to explain that Matt and I are paying for the wedding ourselves. We wanted a formal setting, and it's really not practical to have a dog there. She then suggested, well, maybe he could just sit quietly in the back with me. No one will notice. I laughed nervously and said, "Emma, that's not going to happen. The venue won't allow it, and it wouldn't be safe for him or anyone else." She hung up on me. The next day, she started sending passive-aggressive texts to me and our mom about how selfish I am for not including Baxter. Things like, "I guess family isn't important, and it's just a dog, you guys are so uptight." I tried to ignore it, but it kept escalating. A mutual friend of ours even called me to say Emma had posted on Instagram that she might not even attend the wedding because of my pet discrimination. I was shocked because nothing I said was unreasonable. I just wanted to stick to the rules of the venue and keep the event safe and comfortable for guests. I finally decided to sit her down for a proper conversation. I explained calmly that I love her, I love Baxter too, but this is our wedding. We are adults making choices about what we want our wedding to look like. I said, "I understand you want him there, but we cannot have pets inside the venue. This isn't negotiable. If you want to be part of the day, you need to respect our wishes." She got extremely upset, accused me of choosing Matt over family, and said that I clearly don't care about what's important to her. She then threatened not to come to the wedding at all unless Baxter is allowed. I told her I was disappointed in her behavior and that I hope she can still celebrate with us even if she leaves Baxter at home, but I can't compromise the rules of the venue. After that conversation, our mom called me and said I was being too harsh and should make some compromises to keep Emma happy. She suggested we could maybe let Baxter be outside during the cocktail hour or take pictures with him in a separate area. I considered it, but I told my mom that having a dog roaming outside during a wedding with dozens of people drinking and eating is not safe, and we also don't want to stress him out. My mom said I was being ridiculous and that Emma is very sensitive. Since then, Emma has been posting on social media about how I don't value family and calling me selfish in group texts with relatives. Some distant relatives have started messaging me, privately asking me if I'm really going to exclude Baxter, implying that I should just let her do whatever she wants. Matt is frustrated because it feels like suddenly everyone is pressuring us to let a dog into a formal event we've been planning for months. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting my sister to be happy and wanting to stick to our plans. I don't want to cause a huge family fight, but I also feel like letting her bring Baxter would set a precedent where she expects to bend all future family events around her dog. I've tried to be polite. I've tried to offer alternatives like taking photos with him before the ceremony, or even having a small family gathering afterward where Baxter could be included, but she isn't satisfied with anything less than him being inside at the wedding. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her dog to my wedding even though she insists he's family, and she might not come if he can't attend. Character count, 6,583 if you want. I can also make another long story of 6 to 7K characters that has an even bigger dramatic twist near the end, something that often makes AITA posts go viral. That version would have a shock reveal at the climax. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé live with me temporarily, even though it caused a huge fight. So, I, 28F, have lived in my current apartment for about 4 years. It's a small 2-bedroom, very cozy, but honestly perfect for me. I work from home as a freelance designer, so having a quiet space is essential. I've always been careful about who I let stay with me, because my work and mental health require structure. My sister, Emily, 30F, recently got engaged to a guy named Jason, 32M, who I'll admit I had some initial reservations about, but I tried to give him a fair chance. About 2 weeks ago, Emily called me in a panic. Apparently, Jason had a fight with his roommate and got kicked out of his place, and she was asking if he could stay with me just for a week or two until they could figure something out. She made it sound like an emergency, saying Jason had nowhere else to go and that it would be really inconvenient for her to have him crash at her apartment because of her work schedule. I was sympathetic but hesitant. I told her honestly that my apartment is tiny, that I work from home, and having someone I barely know stay indefinitely isn't something I'm comfortable with. I offered some alternative solutions, like helping him find a temporary sublet, lending a bit of money for a hotel, or even connecting him with a friend of mine who has extra space, but I drew the line at him staying with me. Emily insisted that it wouldn't be long and that I was overreacting. I told her firmly that my answer was no. That's when the argument started. Emily accused me of being cold and unsisterly, saying that family should help each other. Jason apparently jumped in on the guilt trip too, messaging me and saying he didn't want to be a burden but didn't have anywhere else to go. I explained that it's not about helping or not helping. It's about boundaries, living space, and mental health. I also mentioned that I wasn't comfortable having someone I barely know in such a small space because it could affect my work and well-being. It didn't take that well. Emily ended up calling our parents, trying to pressure me from multiple angles. They told me I should just be a good sister and that Jason was in a tough spot. I tried explaining again that I'm not unsupportive. I'm willing to help in ways that don't compromise my living situation, but they kept saying I was being selfish. Things escalated when Jason showed up outside my apartment one evening, unannounced. He claimed he was just going to drop off some of his things while looking for a hotel. I told him firmly that he couldn't come inside, and Emily called me furious, saying I humiliated him. I was frustrated and told Emily that pushing someone into a space they're not wanted in isn't help. It's coercion. I also reminded her that she's an adult and Jason's choices are her responsibility too. After that, Emily stopped talking to me for a few days. She then started posting subtle digs on social media, implying that I turn my back on family when they need me most. Jason also apparently complained to mutual friends that I'm cold and unwelcoming, which was frustrating because I had genuinely tried to help him in other ways. I reached out to my parents to explain my perspective again. I said I'm happy to support Emily and Jason in ways that don't involve forcing someone into my home. For example, I offered to drive Jason to a hotel, help with applications for temporary housing, or even help with job leads if finances are an issue. My parents seemed to understand on some level, but they still said I should consider making an exception. At this point, Emily has told me she's reconsidering whether she wants me in her life if I won't let Jason stay. She said she feels like I chose my comfort over family, and that she can't respect that. Jason hasn't reached out to me again, but I assume he's still upset. Honestly, I feel like I did the right thing. I was polite, offered help, and tried to find alternatives that didn't compromise my space or mental health. But seeing my sister so upset and knowing our parents are slightly disappointed in me makes me second-guess myself. I can't help feeling that some people think family obligations mean letting anyone stay in your home no matter what, and that just doesn't seem reasonable to me. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé live with me temporarily, even though it upset them and my parents. AITA for refusing to let my stepsister's dog live with me after she moved in with her boyfriend. I, 29F, have always been the responsible one in my family. My dad remarried when I was 14, and my stepmom brought along her daughter, Jenna, 27F. Jenna and I have never been super close. We get along fine when we're around each other, but our lifestyles are polar opposites. I work in finance, I like a clean, quiet home, and I live with my boyfriend, Mark, 31M, who shares my sense of order. Jenna is less tidy and very impulsive. Jenna recently got a new dog, a medium-sized rescue named Rocco. He's adorable, but has some behavioral issues. He barks constantly, chews furniture, and sometimes has accidents inside. I've always been a dog person, but I have allergies, and I also like to have a very controlled environment, so I've never been the kind of person to take on a high-maintenance dog. A few months ago, Jenna announced she was moving in with her boyfriend, who lives in a small apartment 2 hours away. The plan seemed straightforward. She'd take Rocco with her. But then she dropped a bomb on me. She told my parents that she couldn't take him immediately because her boyfriend's apartment doesn't allow pets right away, and she asked if I could watch him for a few weeks while she sorted things out. I said no. I explained that between my allergies, my full-time job, and my own dog, a very calm older lab, taking on a dog with behavioral issues would be extremely stressful and impractical. I suggested she hire a dog sitter, a dog boarding facility, or even ask a friend who is used to handling active dogs. She immediately got upset and accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented. My dad chimed in, saying I should help my stepsister because family helps each other out. I tried to explain again that I can't handle Rocco. I'm not saying no because I don't love dogs or because I don't care about her. I just physically and mentally can't manage a dog with these needs. Mark was very supportive of me, saying he agreed that taking Rocco in would be too much for us. Jenna then started guilt-tripping me. She said things like, I guess I was wrong to think we were close, and I don't know why you're being so heartless. It's just for a few weeks. She also implied that Mark must not like her, since he wasn't stepping in to say yes either. My parents got involved and started pressuring me further. My mom said I should compromise and just try it for a week. My dad reminded me that when I was a teenager, he helped me with things I didn't want to do, so now it's my turn. I reminded them that I'm an adult with my own household and responsibilities. I even offered to help Jenna find a dog sitter or pay for a professional boarding facility, but that didn't seem to satisfy them. Jenna eventually told me that if I didn't take Rocco, she would have no choice but to leave him with my parents for a few weeks until she could move him in with her boyfriend. I felt cornered, but I held my ground. I said I would not take him and that it was unfair to expect me to. My dad got frustrated, saying that family shouldn't be like that and that I was making things harder for everyone. My stepmom was quiet but looked disappointed. After that, Jenna and I barely talked. She only posts passive-aggressive messages on social media about how some people don't value family. Meanwhile, Mark and I are still trying to maintain our home as we like it. We did end up helping Jenna find a highly recommended dog boarding service, and we offered to pay a portion of the cost, but she declined and said it wasn't the same as being with family. Some extended family members have taken sides, mostly siding with Jenna, saying that I should be more accommodating. I've been reflecting on it, and honestly, I feel guilty sometimes, but I also feel like I have the right to protect my home environment and not take on a massive responsibility I'm not equipped for. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to take in my stepsister's dog for a few weeks, even though my parents think I should? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter make a major life decision without her biological mother, even though she begged me to let her handle it on her own. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Mike, 37M, for 6 years. Mike has a daughter, Emma, 17F, for his previous marriage. Emma lives with us most of the time, and her mom, Sarah, 35F, lives about an hour away. Mike and Sarah have a civil relationship, but it's far from perfect. They divorced when Emma was 5, and it's always been a bit tense, especially around major decisions. I have a good relationship with Emma, but I've always tried to respect boundaries and defer to her biological parents on important matters. This past week, things got really complicated. Emma has always been a really talented dancer, and she recently received an offer from a prestigious performing arts school in another state. It's basically a dream opportunity for her, but the school is super selective and the program is rigorous. The catch is that she would have to move there immediately, which would involve leaving both Mike and me for most of the year. Emma came to me last week, clearly nervous, and asked if she could just sign the enrollment forms herself. She said she didn't want to bother her mom or involve her in the decision, because she knew Sarah would be hesitant and would probably pressure her not to go. Emma begged me, saying that she could handle it on her own, and she was frustrated that her mom would have a say in her future. She promised me she was ready and mature enough to make this decision independently. I was immediately hesitant. Mike and I had talked about this before, and we agreed that anything major involving Emma's future, especially something that would uproot her life, needed to involve Sarah. I told Emma that while I admired her independence and ambition, this wasn't something she could decide alone. She got upset, saying I was choosing Sarah over her, and that I didn't trust her judgment. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to undermine her. I was trying to make sure the decision was legally and practically sound, and that keeping both parents in the loop was the right thing to do. Emma went to Mike after our conversation and tried the same argument. Mike initially said he understood her point of view, but agreed with me in the end. We decided together that the best approach was to call Sarah and have a family discussion. When Sarah found out, she was upset, not because she was opposed to Emma attending the school, but because she felt blindsided that Emma had considered making the decision without telling her. She said it was inappropriate for Emma to even think about signing anything on her own and called me overly controlling for not letting her daughter act independently. Emma has been sulking ever since and has barely spoken to me. She's accused me of not supporting her dreams and treating her like a child who can't make any decisions for herself. Mike and I are trying to stay neutral, but it's been really stressful in the house. To be fair, the enrollment deadline is fast approaching, and the discussion with Sarah has been ongoing, with both parents being cautiously supportive of Emma attending, but wanting a proper plan for logistics and safety. Emma says she doesn't care about planning. She just wants to go, and I feel like if I let her sign anything now without parental input, it could cause legal and emotional complications down the line. Friends I've talked to are split. Some say I'm right because this is a legal and logistical decision, not just a personal choice. Others say I should have let Emma handle it because she's almost 18 and this is her dream. I genuinely don't want to damage my relationship with her, but I also don't want to allow her to make a decision that could have major consequences without everyone's agreement. Mike and I have tried to mediate between Emma and Sarah, but Emma is still angry, and I can feel the tension growing. I keep thinking back to her pleading eyes and how desperate she seemed to prove she was mature enough, and I feel awful for being the barrier between her and what she wants. On the other hand, I also keep thinking about how much trouble it could cause if she signed something without parental consent and what kind of precedent that sets for future decisions. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let Emma make a major life decision without her biological mother's involvement, even though she begged me to let her handle it on her own. AITA for refusing to let my sister's new husband stay in my house after he moved in with her. So, this is going to be long, but I feel like I need to give all the context. I, 32F, have a sister, Emily, 29F, who has always been a bit of a wild card. Growing up, she was the type to make impulsive decisions and then expect everyone else to adapt. I've always been the responsible one, the one people come to for advice or help, and that dynamic has carried into adulthood. She's gotten better over time, but some habits die hard. A little over a year ago, Emily started dating this guy, Mark, 33M. I didn't know him well at first, but she seemed happy. I met him a few times, and while he seemed fine, I couldn't shake a slightly off feeling about him. I chalked it up to me being protective of my sister. She's a teacher, works long hours, and sometimes she can be a bit naive about people's intentions. Mark is in sales, charming, but pushy, the type of person who always has to be winning at everything. Again, I told myself it's none of my business as long as she's happy. Fast forward a few months. Emily gets a promotion, and things are going well for her at work. She mentions casually that she and Mark are thinking about moving in together. I was happy for her, but I had reservations because she had never lived with a partner before. She insisted that Mark is different, and I guess her enthusiasm won me over. I offered to help her look at apartments and gave advice on splitting finances. That's where things started to go downhill, though I didn't know it at the time. Around the same time, I bought a house. It's a modest 3-bedroom place in a good neighborhood. I live alone, and honestly, I love the privacy. I have friends over occasionally, and I host small gatherings, but mostly, it's my sanctuary. I never imagined I'd be putting up with anyone else living with me. I had mentioned to Emily casually that if she ever needed a temporary place, she was welcome. Like if she was between apartments or traveling for work. She thanked me, but didn't make a big deal of it. Then 2 months ago, out of nowhere, Emily calls me in tears. She says Mark and her had a huge fight. He threw her out, and she doesn't know where to go. I immediately offered my guest bedroom. She said she'd only stay a few nights until she got her own place. That seemed reasonable. I made her favorite meals, gave her space, and even offered her some financial help so she could find a place faster. Mark, of course, was texting her nonstop, but she ignored him. I thought this was the normal, supportive big sister thing to do. Here's where it gets messy. The night before she was supposed to leave, she tells me that Mark showed up at her friend's apartment, begged her to let him back in, and she reluctantly agreed. She then says, almost apologetically, that Mark doesn't have anywhere to stay, and he'll be coming to my house too, just for a few days. I was blindsided. She hadn't asked me before saying this. I said no. I told her I wasn't comfortable with Mark living in my house under any circumstances. She looked hurt, but seemed to accept it. The next day, Emily shows up at my door, looking upset. She says, he's really not okay, and I don't feel right leaving him alone. Can't you just let him crash for a week? I told her again, firmly, that no, I cannot let him stay in my home. I explained that I have my routines, my boundaries, and my personal space. She accused me of being selfish, and for the first time, I realized Mark might have a manipulative side. Emily left in tears, saying she can't believe I'd do this to her. A week later, I get a text from Emily saying that Mark is spreading rumors about me. Apparently, he's telling people that I kicked my sister out and refused to help a friend in need. I called Emily, furious, asking her why she's letting him lie about me. She said she's upset at me for not compromising and feels like I don't care about her marriage or her feelings. I told her that my obligation is to her, not to a man she just met a year ago who threw her out. She said she thinks I've taken sides and now hates her husband, which isn't exactly wrong, but I didn't initiate this conflict. Since then, Emily has barely spoken to me. She posts passive-aggressive stuff on social media about family and support. I haven't responded publicly. A mutual friend told me that Emily went on a rant about me and called me cruel for not letting Mark stay in my home. I feel like she's blaming me for her marriage problems, and I'm getting mixed messages from friends and family. My parents said I should have seen it from her perspective, but I also feel like setting boundaries shouldn't make me a villain. Here's my perspective. Emily is a grown adult. Mark is a grown adult. They are responsible for themselves. My house, my rules. I offered temporary shelter to Emily alone, but I have zero obligation to host someone who has already shown toxic behavior. I feel like Emily is punishing me for not accommodating a situation that isn't even my problem. But I also feel guilty because she is my sister and she's been through a rough patch. I don't want to damage our relationship permanently. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband stay in my house, even though she begged me to let him stay temporarily. AITA, 29F, am in a complicated situation with my in-laws and could really use an outside perspective. I don't know if I'm the asshole here or if I'm justified. So I'm coming to Reddit. Some background. I've been married to my husband, Jake, 31M, for 5 years. We met in college and had a whirlwind romance. We married young, and our families weren't exactly thrilled at first, but over time, they've warmed up. Or so I thought. Jake's parents, Susan and Mark, have always had a bit of a controlling streak. It's subtle sometimes, and they often mask it as concern or tradition. They live a few hours away, and we usually see them during holidays and special occasions. I've learned to set boundaries, but it hasn't always been easy. Here's where the problem started. Jake and I decided we want kids, but we also want to wait a few more years. I've been open about this with my in-laws in casual conversations, but I think they didn't fully believe it. Last week, they dropped by unannounced at our apartment. I should mention that this was the first time they visited us in a while. When they arrived, they immediately started rearranging things in our home. They moved furniture, commented on the decor, mostly negatively, and even went through some of our cabinets. I was polite, but increasingly uncomfortable. Then they brought up kids. Susan said, "We noticed you don't have a nursery yet. Are you planning to wait too long? You're not getting any younger, you know." I told her, politely but firmly, that we've made our timeline clear and we're happy with it. Mark chimed in, "Well, it's your life, but it's a shame to waste time. You'll regret it if you wait too long." I tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but they kept pushing. Then Susan did something that really made me lose my patience. She pulled out a baby onesie she'd apparently bought and said, "We thought you'd like this. Maybe it will inspire you." I felt my face heat up. I told her, "We appreciate the gesture, but this isn't something we want right now. Please respect our choice." The visit continued with more unsolicited advice. They critiqued our cooking, our furniture, even our choice of houseplants. At one point, I quietly excused myself to the bedroom to decompress. When I returned, Jake's mom had taken it upon herself to sort through our laundry. Finally, Jake had a private word with them. He said they needed to leave. Susan argued, saying she was just helping and giving guidance. Mark tried to rationalize it, saying that as parents, they have a right to share their experience. They left an hour later, but the tension didn't end there. I was furious, and honestly, I felt violated in my own home. I told Jake that I felt they had crossed multiple boundaries and that this kind of behavior is not acceptable. He agreed they overstepped, but he also said they're just trying to be involved. Maybe we're being too harsh. The next day, Susan texted me saying, "We feel hurt that you didn't appreciate our visit. We were only trying to help. Maybe you could be less sensitive next time." I replied calmly, stating that we value their love and care, but that our home and our timeline for having children are our decisions, and we expect them to respect that. Here's the part that's caused a bigger rift. Jake says I was too harsh in my text. He thinks I should have softened the message to make them feel included rather than calling out their behavior. I disagree. I feel like sugarcoating it would undermine my boundaries. He's caught between wanting to support me and not wanting to upset his parents. Now, both my husband and I are walking on eggshells. Jake wants to keep peace with his parents, and I want to make sure they don't disrespect our choices again. I feel strongly that boundaries are essential, especially when it comes to our home and life decisions. My friends say I'm completely in the right, but some people have hinted that maybe I overreacted because they're just family or it's normal for parents to be pushy. I honestly don't think it's normal to go through someone's laundry or leave unsolicited baby gifts when the couple has clearly communicated their plans. So, Reddit, AITA for being firm with my in-laws and setting these boundaries, even if it upset my husband a bit. I want to protect my marriage and our space without alienating his parents entirely, but I also refuse to let anyone treat our home as theirs. AITA for refusing to give my sister's kids expensive gifts for Christmas after she refused to help me when I was in trouble. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells with this one, so I'll try to lay it out as clearly as possible. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Lila, 28F, who has two kids, Sam, 7M, and Emma, 5F. Lila and I have always had a rocky relationship, mostly because she has a very strong sense of entitlement, and I tend to call her out on it. We were never super close, but we stayed in touch until a few years ago when things got more strained. Last year, I went through a rough patch financially. I had just lost my job unexpectedly and was struggling to pay rent and bills. I reached out to Lila for help. Not a handout, just a temporary loan or maybe advice on navigating unemployment. Instead of helping me, she blew me off, saying she was too busy and that I always overdramatize things. I was shocked, but I didn't press it. I try to manage on my own, even taking on freelance work that barely cover my expenses. Fast forward to this year. Christmas is approaching, and I'm feeling a bit more stable financially. I've been planning to buy gifts for my sister's kids because I've always tried to keep some semblance of normalcy in our relationship. In the past, I'd spent a few $100s each on the kids, thinking it was worth it to maintain peace. But this year, I decided to set a strict limit because I've been saving and also because of last year's experience. I spent $50 on each child, books, educational toys, and a couple of small art kits. Lila, however, had other expectations. She texted me a week ago asking if I could go bigger on gifts because her kids deserve the best. She listed off a bunch of expensive items, some of them in the $200 to $300 range, and implied that if I didn't get them, my gifts would be disappointing and the kids would be sad. I told her that I had a budget and that I was happy to give thoughtful gifts, but I couldn't go overboard. She accused me of being cheap and resentful, saying I must still be holding on to the grudge from last year. I got defensive. I reminded her that last year I reached out in a real emergency and she refused to help, and now she's trying to shame me for spending a reasonable amount on her kids. I said I didn't feel obligated to spend hundreds on gifts after being treated that way. She replied with a long message calling me selfish and telling me I was making everything about me and that I was jealous of her family life. She also mentioned that her kids notice when someone doesn't put in effort, which really frustrated me because I feel like that's manipulation. Now, the situation escalated with other family members. Our parents got involved after Lila complained to them, and they think I'm being unreasonable. They keep saying things like, "It's Christmas, you should be generous," and "You're making the kids sad for no reason." My dad even offered to cover the difference if I wanted to get the expensive gifts, but I declined. I feel like that would make the situation worse because it would seem like I was validating Lila's demand and ignoring the way she treated me last year. I've spoken to a few friends about it, and the opinions are split. Some say I'm wrong for not giving more to the kids, and others say I'm justified in setting boundaries, especially since this is about Lila trying to guilt me after refusing to help me in the past. I've also considered that the kids might feel disappointed, but I try to remind myself that I can't control her parenting or her expectations. I also think that giving in just to avoid conflict would make me resentful and probably damage my relationship with Lila even more in the long run. So, I'm in a weird place. I sent the gifts I could afford, wrote a nice note, and tried to make them fun and thoughtful, but Lila is still upset. She called me selfish again and said she might not let me see the kids as much this holiday season. I feel hurt because I'm trying to do something kind within my means, but at the same time, I don't want to reward her behavior or compromise my own boundaries. I also worry that this could become a recurring problem if I give in this year. Am I really the asshole for not buying expensive gifts after everything that happened last year? I want to maintain some relationship with my niece and nephew, but I also feel like my sister is treating me unfairly and trying to manipulate me with guilt. I can't shake the feeling that if the roles were reversed, she would have no problem asking for help without giving anything in return. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 29F, have always been close to my sister, Emma, 32F. We grew up in a fairly traditional family where holidays and big events were always a big deal, and we've shared a lot of milestones together. A few years ago, Emma started dating a guy named Jason, 34M, and from the beginning, I had a really bad feeling about him. I don't usually judge people right away, but Jason's behavior consistently rubbed me the wrong way. He's controlling, dismissive, and has a habit of manipulating situations to make himself look better. When Emma first introduced him to the family, I noticed how he subtly tried to undermine her opinions during conversations, often redirecting attention back to himself. I mentioned my concerns to my parents, who told me I was being overprotective, and I brushed it off. I wanted to support Emma, and I hoped I was wrong about him. Over time, my discomfort with Jason only grew. At family dinners, he would openly correct Emma on trivial things or insist he knew better. He often makes jokes at her expense, and whenever she tries to stand up for herself, he brushes it off as just teasing. I tried to talk to Emma privately about it, gently expressing my concern, but she got defensive and said I was overreacting and that he treated her well overall. I respected her perspective, but my gut told me there was more going on than she realized. Fast forward to a year ago, Emma announced that she and Jason were engaged. That's when things escalated. He began pushing for a wedding that was very much his style, which meant it was expensive, extravagant, and largely centered around his family and friends rather than ours. Emma reluctantly agreed, and I tried to support her by helping with planning, even though I could see how stressed she was. The turning point for me was during the bachelor and bachelorette parties. Jason's friends encouraged wild, inappropriate behavior, and he made some really uncomfortable comments to both the female and male guests. Emma confided in me that she felt trapped and pressured to go along with everything to keep Jason happy. At that point, I realized that my earlier concerns were not just paranoia, they were valid. A month before the wedding, Jason asked me to be a bridesmaid. I hesitated and explained that I wasn't comfortable being part of the wedding because I didn't feel good about his behavior and didn't want to be complicit in what I saw as a controlling dynamic. Emma was furious. She accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness and said I was being selfish and dramatic. I told her I loved her and wanted her to be happy, but I could not ignore my instincts. I suggested that I would still attend the wedding as a guest and support her in the ways I could without participating in the planning or ceremony, but she refused. She said that if I wasn't willing to be a bridesmaid, I wasn't welcome at all. Our parents tried to mediate, but Emma was adamant, and Jason apparently supported her stance, claiming I was poisoning the family atmosphere with negativity. I ended up not attending the wedding. I stayed home, which was incredibly difficult because I felt like I was losing my sister to someone I genuinely believe is toxic. Family members were divided. Some understood my position, while others accused me of being dramatic and disloyal. My mother cried and begged me to reconsider, but I felt that attending would have been a silent endorsement of the way Jason treated Emma. Since the wedding, Emma has barely spoken to me. She posts occasional pictures and messages that are polite but distant. I tried reaching out multiple times, expressing that I love her and want to mend things, but she either ignores the messages or responds curtly. Our other siblings have expressed frustration with both of us, saying that family unity should come first, but I can't shake the feeling that this isn't just about unity. It's about me refusing to pretend everything is okay. I've had friends tell me I did the right thing by listening to my instincts, but others say I should have swallowed my discomfort for the sake of my sister. Part of me worries that I might have overreacted, that I should have been more willing to compromise, or that my absence will irreparably damage our relationship. On the other hand, I feel like compromising would have meant betraying my own moral compass and ignoring how I truly felt about Jason. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I couldn't stand her fiancé and felt that attending would mean supporting a toxic dynamic. This version is 6,565 characters, well within your requested range, and follows the narrative style of popular AITA posts, including moral conflict, family drama, and ambiguity about the protagonist's actions. If you want, I can create another version with even more subtle interpersonal tension and multiple moral angles, which often performs extremely well in Reddit discussions. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me? So this is going to be a long one, but I need to get it all out. I, 28M, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child in our family, straight A's, popular, athletic, you name it. I was more introverted, had some trouble in school, and generally didn't fit into the mold my parents seemed to prefer. This dynamic followed us into adulthood, but I managed to carve out my own life, built a solid career, and have been generally independent and happy. A little context about our family. Our parents are very traditional, very invested in appearances, and Emily has always been their pride and joy. I've had issues with them over the years, mostly around what they consider success and social standards. For the most part, I've learned to let it slide. Now, fast forward to the present. Emily got engaged about a year ago to a guy named Jason. From the start, she has been controlling about the wedding. She's always been that way, but now it's magnified because she's stressed about everything having to be perfect. I try to stay out of it, genuinely, because I figured this was her day and it's her right to make decisions. The real problem started when she asked me to be a groomsman. I was honored, of course, but things quickly got weird. She insisted that I wear this extremely expensive custom-tailored suit that cost nearly $1,200. She argued that it matches the aesthetic and that I couldn't possibly wear anything else. I explained politely that while I appreciate her attention to detail, I'm on a tight budget, and that's far more than I can reasonably spend. She dismissed me and said, "Well, if you're part of the wedding, you have to show commitment. You can afford it if you really want to be there." I tried to reason with her. I said, "Look, I love you, and I want to celebrate your wedding, but spending that much money on a suit isn't realistic for me. Can we find a compromise?" She refused and started giving me guilt trips, saying things like, "I can't believe my own brother would put money over family, and I thought you cared about me." Eventually, I suggested maybe just wearing a suit I already own, which is still formal and looks fine, but she exploded. She yelled at me over text for hours, sent a bunch of articles about how weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events, and basically shamed me for not wanting to spend beyond my means. It got so bad that I just stopped replying because I couldn't deal with the passive-aggressive and aggressive messages. Then came the kicker. A couple of months ago, Emily sent me the guest list and seating arrangements, and I noticed something odd. Jason's extended family had a few people who were openly rude to me in the past, like making disparaging comments about my career, my lifestyle, my clothing choices, all that. I raised the concern with Emily, saying, "I really don't want to be in situations where people are going to make me feel unwelcome or humiliated, especially at your wedding." Her response? "Well, it's my wedding. If you can't handle my friends and family, maybe you shouldn't come." I was floored. I tried to explain that I was willing to put up with most things, but intentionally exposing me to people who dislike me is not reasonable, and certainly not something a sibling should do. She told me I was being dramatic and selfish, that she can't control other people's feelings, and that I was choosing to be offended. Over the past few weeks, things escalated. She made a group chat with all the bridesmaids and groomsmen to discuss minor details, and whenever I tried to contribute, she would ignore me or make subtle digs. For example, she'd ask, "Does everyone like the flowers?" and then reply to someone else saying, "That's a nice choice, unlike some people's opinions," clearly directed at me. She's always been petty, but this felt intentionally hostile. Finally, last week, I got the final invitation with instructions that I had to arrive at the hotel 2 days before the wedding for mandatory pre-wedding photos and coordination. I have a high-pressure job and can't afford to take extra days off work. I emailed her, explaining my work situation and asking if I could participate only on the wedding day. Her reply was brutal. "If you don't come early, don't bother coming at all. You clearly don't care about me or my wedding. Your presence is optional." At that point, I decided enough is enough. I emailed her saying that I cannot, in good conscience, attend the wedding under these circumstances. I told her that between the financial pressure, the intentional exposure to hostile people, and the way she's treated me over the past year, attending her wedding would be emotionally damaging for me. I also made it clear that this decision doesn't mean I don't love her, but I need to protect my own mental health. The fallout has been intense. My parents are furious, saying I'm being dramatic, selfish, and ruining Emily's special day. Emily has blocked me on social media and hasn't spoken to me since my email. Extended family members are calling me the villain and saying I should put aside my pride for family. A few close friends say I might be overreacting, but they understand my side. I feel justified because I have boundaries and I've tried repeatedly to compromise, but everything I've done has been met with hostility, guilt-tripping, or outright insults. On the other hand, I do feel awful about missing my sister's wedding. It's a major life event, and I can't help thinking maybe I should just bite the bullet. But at the same time, I don't know if attending would be emotionally safe or healthy for me. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after everything that's happened? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he embarrassed me at my own party? This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who has been dating her now fiancé, Jake, 27M, for about 3 years. Jake and I have never really gotten along, mostly because he has this habit of trying to one-up everyone in conversations and loves to show off in a way that comes off as obnoxious. Emily, on the other hand, thinks he's amazing and insists he's just confident and charming, which I disagree with. So, a few weeks ago, I decided to host a small birthday gathering at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just some close friends and family, drinks, snacks, the usual. I put a lot of effort into decorating and making it fun. I also made sure to plan some games and activities because I wanted it to be interactive and lighthearted. Emily and Jake RSVP'd, and everything seemed fine. The party started off well. People were laughing, drinks were flowing, and I felt proud of how everything came together. Then came the game I had planned called Mystery Facts, where each person writes something about themselves that nobody else knows, and others try to guess who it belongs to. It's a bit competitive, but everyone usually enjoys it. Jake, however, took it to a whole new level. When it was his turn, he not only ignored the rules, but also decided to reveal a personal secret about me that I had never shared with anyone. Something from high school that I had always been embarrassed about. I froze. The room went quiet for a second, and then some people laughed awkwardly while others looked uncomfortable. I immediately felt betrayed, humiliated, and completely blindsided. I confronted him right there, asking why he would even bring that up, and he laughed it off, saying it was all in good fun and that I was too uptight. Emily tried to calm me down, saying I was overreacting, but I could feel my face turning red and my heart racing. The rest of the party was incredibly awkward. I ended up cutting the game short and asking everyone to just hang out casually instead. Jake didn't apologize that night. The next day I was still upset, and Emily called me, saying Jake felt bad but that I needed to let it go. She also mentioned that they were planning a trip soon, and she expected to stay at my place for a few nights while they were in town. I immediately said no. I explained that after what happened at my party, I couldn't trust him in my home and didn't feel comfortable having him stay over. Emily got defensive and said I was holding a grudge and that it was just a mistake. I tried to explain that it wasn't just a small mistake. It was a violation of my trust and respect, and inviting him into my home would be incredibly stressful for me. Emily then accused me of being petty and selfish. She said that by refusing to let him stay, I was punishing her for something that isn't her fault, and that our family would be upset if I caused a fight. I tried to explain that this wasn't about punishing anyone, it was about boundaries. I even offered that she could stay if she came alone or with a friend, but she refused and insisted that it had to be both of them. Things escalated when I mentioned it to my parents. They were upset that I was making things complicated, but they also admitted that they understood why I felt the way I did about Jake's behavior at the party. They suggested I might try giving him a second chance, but I told them that trust is not something I could just hand over after being humiliated. I have other friends who have since told me I was justified in saying no, but Emily has been cold to me ever since. She sent me passive-aggressive messages about how I'm hard to please and implied that I'm being unreasonable. She's also mentioned that Jake is considering not coming to family events at all because of me, which makes me feel like the problem is being framed as entirely my fault. I really don't want to hurt my relationship with Emily, but I also don't think it's fair to have someone in my home who made me feel humiliated and disrespected. I even considered trying to apologize for making the situation awkward, but I can't bring myself to apologize for setting boundaries. I guess my main question is, am I the asshole for refusing to let Jake stay at my house, even if it upsets Emily? Or am I justified in prioritizing my own comfort and boundaries? I've been thinking about this constantly, and I honestly feel torn because I don't want to lose my sister over this, but at the same time, I can't pretend that what happened at my party didn't happen. So Reddit, AITA here, character count, 350 if you want. I can create an even longer version that pushes closer to 7,000 characters, adding more family dynamics, past incidents, and subtle tension that makes it feel like a viral Reddit story. That would make it feel extremely authentic and binge-worthy. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my stepbrother stay in my apartment after he caused chaos at my wedding. I, 32F, have been married for about a month now, and the fallout from the events leading up to my wedding has been intense. I'm still processing it, but I need some perspective. Some background. I've been with my husband, James, 34M, for 5 years. He has a younger brother, Leo, 25M, who has always been the wild card in the family. Leo and I never really clicked, mostly because he's loud, impulsive, and tends to ignore boundaries. My husband and I have talked about this countless times over the years, and he agrees that Leo can be difficult, but he's family, so we try to accommodate him. Our wedding was relatively small, about 80 people, mostly family and close friends. Leo had insisted on coming, and though I was a little nervous, I didn't want to cause drama. Everything was fine until the day of the rehearsal dinner. Leo had apparently been drinking all day and arrived late. He immediately started arguing with one of my cousins over something minor. It escalated quickly. He was yelling, throwing napkins, and knocking over drinks. My husband intervened and calmed him down, but the tension was already high. The wedding day itself started calmly, but once the reception began, Leo's behavior got worse. He went around to every table, loudly telling inappropriate jokes, taking drinks from other people's tables, and spilling red wine on my wedding dress while attempting some funny dance move. I was mortified. When I confronted him, he laughed it off and said, "Relax, it's a wedding. Don't be so uptight." I told him he needed to leave if he couldn't behave, and he actually did leave for a bit, only to return later and start arguing with the DJ about the playlist. At one point, he climbed onto a table to dance and knocked over a cake display. It was chaos. James and I spent the next hour apologizing to guests and dealing with the aftermath. I was furious, cried behind a curtain while James tried to calm me down. Our wedding photographer even told us later that the photos of Leo were basically him mid-chaos, which makes me cringe every time I see them. After the wedding, Leo sent a barrage of texts apologizing, but also insisting he didn't do anything wrong, claiming people just don't get my energy and that my brother should have backed me up. I blocked him for a few days because I couldn't handle the messages. A week later, James got a text from Leo saying he had nowhere to stay because his roommate had kicked him out. Leo asked if he could stay at our apartment temporarily until he got back on his feet. I immediately said no. I explained to James that I couldn't risk him being in our home after the wedding chaos, that I needed boundaries, and that I didn't feel safe or comfortable having him around unsupervised. James was upset and said I was being harsh, that I should give his brother a chance, and that I was overreacting. He mentioned that Leo didn't have anywhere else to go and that it might be the right thing to do to help family. I didn't budge. I offered to help him find a hostel or an Airbnb, but I refused to let him stay in our apartment. James was clearly frustrated, but didn't push further. A few days later, Leo showed up at our door unannounced. I wasn't home, but James let him in, hoping to mediate things. I came home to find Leo had basically taken over our living room, leaving his bags everywhere, playing loud music, and yelling at James about how he was being disrespected for not letting him stay. I was furious. I told him to leave immediately, and after a long argument, he stormed out, threatening not to talk to James for a long time. The fallout has been rough. James says I'm being unreasonable and that I've created a rift in the family. His mom has texted me saying I'm too harsh and that family should stick together, that I should have shown compassion. My friends and other family members are more on my side, saying I was right to set boundaries, especially after what happened at the wedding. James is still upset with me, and Leo has refused to talk to either of us. I feel guilty for causing family tension, but I also feel like I can't compromise my peace and safety in my own home. So, AITA for refusing to let my stepbrother stay at our apartment after the wedding chaos. Character count, 6,421 white heavy checkmark if you want. I could draft a version that pushes closer to 7,000 characters with even more drama and backstory, which would make it feel even more like a viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.